Hi everyone, my name is Peter. Thanks for joining me at Our Worship Sound, where we're working to make worship keyboard technique and technology easier. I want to show you how I set up my sounds for over 90% of the songs that I play and how I use MainStage to do it easily. MainStage is a program that runs on Mac computers, so when you hook it up to your keyboard and your MIDI connections, you have the ability to create some really amazing keyboard sounds. Typically when I'm playing, I'm going to set up sounds of up to 4 layers. Okay, so my first layer is almost always a piano of some kind, either a piano or an electric piano, something like that. That's on that first layer, and then to that I add a dark pad sound. So you hear just that wash of sound. Another thing that I do is I set up a MIDI controller knob on my system to control what we call the synth filter cutoff. So that determines how much of the high frequencies of the sound come through. So you can really change the sound of the synth pad a lot by controlling that synth filter. So I have a knob set up to do that. And then for my third layer, once the song starts to rise dynamically, I want to match that with a brighter layer. So my third layer is always something brighter. And then for my fourth layer, I add an arpeggiated synth sound. Okay, so an arpeggiator just takes the notes that you're playing and repeats them in a rhythmic pattern. And that can do a couple of things. If you mix it low in volume, it'll just kind of add some motion and texture to your sound. If you mix it at a higher level, it'll give you that big modern synth sound. Okay, so I'll just create them in those 4 layers, and that gives me a lot of flexibility and creativity. The problem is if I didn't have an organizational system to put all that together, it would take a long time to do that. So what I've done is I've created a system that makes it really easy to do that. So what I do is I organize my patches into those 4 layers with 4 different categories. So I have my first category with what I put in layer 1, my second category with my dark pads in layer 2, and then my bright layers, and then arpeggiated synth sounds in that 4th category. Okay, so it makes it really easy to combine them, but what I do is go a step further, and this is really important, that when you set up your sounds in these different categories, if you want to be able to combine them easily, you have to make sure that the way you have them mapped to control them is thought through, because if I set all of these sounds up so where I control their volume with the first knob on my hardware, if I go to combine them, it's going to create a conflict in those mappings. And so you want to make sure you think through what knobs am I going to use to control what parts of these sounds, and then make sure that when you combine them that there aren't conflicts. So for this first category, the volume is here on this first knob. For the second category, the volume is here on the second knob with the other control as well. And then the third layer on the third knob, and so on. So that does a couple things. It eliminates those conflicts, but also when you go to play, you don't have a lot of you don't have to think through okay, what did I assign this to, and what do I need to do to control this sound? You have this system that you're used to, and so you know what's going to control what. And just to let you know, so the way this is set up is I've set up the software to mimic what I have in my hardware setup. So I have the same MIDI controller knobs represented in the software, the same drum pads, so I can switch patches and that sort of thing. And you just link those up, and then you can control the software with your MIDI knobs. Or if you have faders, that can work too. So what we're looking at here is something that I have available as the synth layers collection. I've had synth layers in the past. There's synth layers 1 and synth layers 2. So what I've done is I've combined all those things, plus added some new patches to it, and really gone through and make sure everything is really tightly ingrained in this new organizational system, so you can combine things really, really easily. So let me show you how easy it is to control things. From the first category, I'm going to take a grand piano. And then from the second category, I'm going to use this pad. So I'll just press Command and click that to select it. And from the third layer, let's go with this. And then this arpeggiated synth sound. So I've got 4 sounds selected, 1 from each category. Then I go up to here, click on that, and select New Patch from Selected Patches. And now we have a new patch that's up here. So now when we look at our channel strips, we see the grand piano, the pad, the bright layer, and the arpeggiated sound. So when I play my keyboard, you're going to hear all 4 sounds. But not only that, the mappings of all these knobs and what I use to control them is all here as well. So I can bring down everything except piano. Then I can bring in the pad. I can adjust its filter. and bring in my bright layer, mix in the arpeggiated synth sound, and it's all set up and it's really easy to use. So like I said, you want options that are creative and give you flexibility, but you need to be able to put them together without having to spend hours every week trying to do that. So I hope that's helpful as you set up your own library of sounds, that you're doing it in a way that you can combine sounds and make them work really well for you. If you want to get started with this, or if you want to hear all of these patches individually, you can do that all at ourworshipsound.com/synth layers, or just click the link that's in the right-hand corner in the description. You can get started with that. It's a really good system. I haven't put out a lot of Mainstage patches the last few years because I pretty much just use these all the time. So these have given me like all the power and flexibility I need to have really good patches week in and out. So I hope you'll check that out at ourworshipsound.com/synth layers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.